Hello and welcome to another episode of SCP Cafe. This is 2019, week 17. I'm your host, Blue Soul, SCP Wiki moderator, chat operator, subreddit moderator, author, loving husband, dog petter, clone aficionado, Tottenham Hotspur supporter, Avengers Endgame spoiler. You see what happened? Nah, I'm kidding. So this is a short week, not a lot of skips actually, only about 9 of them, and I have a theory that it has to do with this beautiful weather we've been having across the United States. Absolutely gorgeous. I am a little jealous, I'll admit that I'm not out there right now, but it is taking a short break to rain, so I'm going to go ahead and knock this podcast out. I actually only have 3 that I want to cover this week. Before I get into them, though, I have a couple of things that I want to talk about. There are a couple of apps that are out and about that are... One's been around for a long time. The other one's sort of growing and gaining popularity. The former is Stitcher, and I am not present on Stitcher, and that is an intentional decision on my part, looking through the licensing terms for being listed in their service. Not something I'm really interested in agreeing to. It appears to, kind of do what I have to do. Legally, I would have to give them consideration. I would have to make mention of them on every show. I'm not interested in doing that. Additionally, there is an app called Luminary. I am listed on Luminary. I did not sign up for it. This is actually becoming a rather hot button issue in the podcasting world. This company, up until very recently, was downloading your files and turning around, compressing them, otherwise sort of mutilating the shit out of them, and then, listing it in their own directory where they have a paid version of an app and they get all the revenue from it. And additionally, if you had links, like a lot of podcasters do, to a Patreon or whatever, it would remove them from your show notes. So all around, very shitty practices and not something I'm interested in. I am listed there. I am not requesting a delisting due primarily to the licensing of this podcast. This is, since it deals so heavily in CC work, I have been sort of operating under the assumption that the podcast itself is also a Creative Commons production. So I don't really have standing to tell them to take it down. They actually have the right to do so. But perhaps I could complain that they're not following the license that this podcast sets out. And I don't know. I'm keeping an eye on things there. They have apparently been listening to a significant amount of backlash over the past week, and they've made some changes. They're no longer pulling and manipulating the source files. They're directing things where they need to go. But they are still removing links, which is really, really crappy on their part. And for example, most of the links that I set up on posts for if you visit the site on scp.cafe as opposed to, say, YouTube or Spotify, is I have links that go to the wiki page for each of the works that I discuss. And those would be gone if you listen or consume the podcast on Luminary. So I would just as soon suggest... There's a couple ways to go about it, catching the show. If you want to take full advantage of all of the links, really the only place to do that is via the website, via scp.cafe. I've added today a subscribe by email feature, so you can just punch in your email and you will get a notification whenever a new show is posted. And additionally, I've been putting this off for a while, I have finished an episode reference, which is available at the top menu on scp.cafe. That has every skip covered up to this point, going all the way back to the Week 51 show from last year. And it was a bit of work, I'm not going to lie, but very much worth doing, I think. And now it'll be a little easier to keep up with. And you'll be able to go straight to any particular episode and also to the wiki for any particular piece. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited now that I'm done making the thing, because it was kind of a pain. But yeah, check that out. It's sortable if you want to look for your own works, or see if a certain skip already got covered. That's the place to go. In making that list, I realized that the covering of my 100th skip kind of went without fanfare. We're actually into the 120s at this point, and like I said, we've got 3 more to cover today. Last but not least, on the Patreon front, I gave this some consideration. I've talked to some people that have more experience than I in the platform, and I am going to give it a shot. I'm going to explore kind of what all I need to do, and what I'm going to do from a base premise is the Patreon page will be not only for this podcast, but some of the other we'll call them contributions that I do as it pertains to the wiki. Notably, I have a Chrome extension, SCSSP, and I also have a couple of tools that I'm using to do work for things like backing up the wiki. I have a piece of software called Scuttle that I named after my tail of the same name, and a Python application that goes with it called 2Stacks that together are sort of they're one of the few ways that we have backups for the wiki. I've been doing some major work on that today for the first time in about 6 weeks, and I'm going to sort of put it all under that umbrella. So keep an eye. Well, I shouldn't say keep an eye. I'll let you guys know as I get a little closer and have more of a plan on the Patreon front. We are going to give it a shot, but I have to figure out sort of how that's going to work. Particularly with having multiple projects sort of under the same roof. Anyway, money, blah, blah, blah. Week 17 show. 3 skips out of 9. Yeah, short week, and probably a short show. We're going to kick things off. SCP-4548, titled Hate by DJ Cactus. The number should be a little bit of a clue in conjunction with the title of the work. The page features the black highlighter theme that I've made mention of a few times. We have a wide image of a star field and one slightly brighter star roughly dead center of the image, and it reads as a caption, SCP-4548. We have an object class of Keter, and another image that is attempting to show the position of this particular star in a larger cluster of stars. Procedures are fairly minimal, that information relating to the skip is to be suppressed. Assets located within any organizations that operate large optical and radio telescopes are to maintain systems that will prohibit the equipment from directly observing this skip, this star, and individuals who are affected by this skip are to be contained and remanded to local site psychological staff for evaluation. Computerized voices are to be used to communicate with subjects in the later stages of affliction. We have a footnote here explaining why that conversation with affected subjects becomes increasingly difficult to the point of impossibility. Subjects will over time become unresponsive or lash out violently, and the use of computerized text-to-speech has assisted somewhat. Those subjects over time will begin to experience malice perceived from the digital voice as well. And we describe the skip as an anomalous mimetic cosmological phenomenon with adverse effects on human cognition. It's a green star that appears in the night sky to persons who have previously seen the star directly or have been made directly aware of it in some fashion. We've found a correlation between spontaneous awareness of the skip and individuals who've recently experienced loss or hardship and those who are predisposed to severe anxiety. And individuals suffering from certain schizotypal disorders appear to be at a higher risk as well. So the primary anomalous effect of the skip is experienced by individuals who directly view it with the naked eye, and the subjects will experience over time a variety of symptoms that will gradually increase in severity, including anxiety, paranoia, fixation with the skip, and bodily discomfort. And over time, subjects who view the skip will lose their ability to discern between various human emotions and malice. Over time, the condition gets bad enough that subjects will experience perceived aggression from animals, plants, inanimate objects, concepts, ideas, and their own bodies. And this will typically culminate with a total dissociation with their own identity, which they also feel hostility from. And subjects who are not terminated prior to this stage will enter a catatonic state and cannot be revived. Before they get quite to that point, they will typically describe hearing voices that they believe originate from the star and seeing it at all times, even if their eyes are closed or if they have been blinded. There's a footnote here by blinded that says many subjects have attempted to remove their own eyes or otherwise hinder their functionality, typically with chemicals or sharp implements. That is like really squeaky horror for me. I hate even like having to put eye drops in. So bleh. So the subjects will also describe vivid dreams or nightmares involving the star that cannot be mitigated even with medication intended to induce a dreamless sleep. So that's the skip. The rest of it is a series of interviews, and it has to do with a single subject being held in Foundation custody as the symptoms are worsening. In the first log, the patient is really on the defensive the entire time. He describes the way he feels, that he saw this thing in the sky, it bothers him, it didn't look right. Saw it again last night, and it's like it's always there. That's why they felt uncomfortable, made them feel uncomfortable. And then the previous doctor starts in with this attitude about them being there and not being able to help myself. So they describe it that it's like a star, only it wasn't right. It didn't glow like other stars. It was almost foggy, sort of hazy, like it was sick. That's how it looked, sick, and looking at it made me feel sick, like it wasn't supposed to be there. God, it felt horrible. It's ruined my entire week. It's all I can think about. And our doctor says, "Can you tell me?" And the patient cuts them off. Says, "What? What did I do wrong now?" And we kind of end it there. So about 2 weeks pass. We have another interview, and they're much more aggressive, more aggressive than defensive at this point. They're complaining about everything. They perceive everybody is mocking them and hating them, even the table, that everything exists to spite them, and asks, "Why are you doing this to me?" Another 2 weeks pass, and at this point, we've determined that the patient would no longer react in any productive way to any human interaction at all. So we try a text-to-speech feature to communicate with the patient, and this actually works really well. Initially, they actually apologized and said, "I haven't heard another voice like yours in weeks." And the AI, it's text-to-speech, but we'll call it an AI just for the sake of it, says, "My name is Jane. I'm here to help." This is the same doctor that they've been working with previously, but through this text-to-speech, they're going by Jane. And the patient really likes it. Says, "Jane, like rain. It's a beautiful name." And the patient asked, "Do you know why they hate me? I thought they were disgusted with me. They thought I was less of a man because I had to go see that therapist." The patient's sister had died in a car accident. So they had to do this grief management thing, and this is apparently what's really eating at them, that the having to go see a therapist was emasculating to them. But then they say, "But it's more than that. I don't know. They all hate me here. Everyone in the world hates me." And Jane says, "I don't think they hate you." The patient says, "They do. I've seen how they look at me, like I'm filth. I thought it was just the guards at first, but then it was everyone, even the janitors. I can just sense it. I know they hate me." And starts sobbing, and starts describing a little song that they keep hearing all the time. It's always there. And sometimes there are little words in there in the song to let them know how much everything hates them. And the AI, he almost immediately starts turning on the AI. It says, "You hate me too. You don't hate me, do you, Jane?" Jane says, I don't hate you, David. Says, the floor hates me for stepping on it. The walls hate me for being inside them. The air hates me for breathing it. Water hates me for drinking it. When it goes in me, it hurts me because it hates me. The light hates me. The dark hates me. You hate me too. The star told me. Why do you hate me, Jane? So, 2 more weeks, about 10 days pass. We have a little bit of communication from here. Doctor's trying to get their attention. Says, can you hear me? And says, we're going to have to keep you here for a few more days, David. The doctors want to make sure it's not infected. You lost a lot of blood. They just want to help. And her patient says, did you see the star? David sees it. It hates David. We go another 6 weeks at this point, and our doctor says, hello, David, how are you feeling today? Patient says, David isn't here anymore, Jane. And doctor says, who am I speaking to today? They go, someone else. The doctor says, where is David? He responds, where all the hated things go, Jane. He's gone to the green place, hateful little plant in the garden. That I am where David used to be. He was a wretched thing, wasn't he? His hair hated him, so he pulled it out. His eyes hated him, so he tore them loose. His skin hated him, so he ripped it off. But none of that helped David, so he's gone. So many of you have forgotten what it's like, what it's really like. You've lost your way, all of you. That's why I'm here, Jane, to remind you what it's really like to be hated. David knows now. You all will, in time. Don't be sad, Jane. Everything has its place. Love comes from the heart. Happiness is a loaded gun. Sadness is rain on a cloudy day. Va pida, va pida. Our doctor asks, so where did you come from? He responds, me? I've been up here forever, Jane, and I'm never going away. End article. So, well, I guess first off, let's address the elephant in the room. The connection between this and 1548. I mean, I think I was always at a no vote on 1548, The Hateful Star, because it did some things well, but a couple of things that I didn't really care for. You know, it's something we have absolutely no answer for, and it was a big bad that didn't ever give me any real reason to kind of care about it. This is a more insidious thing, and I like that the ramifications of it are such that you wouldn't necessarily know if somebody were afflicted with this until it was very late in the game, and may not be able to make any connections, but the Foundation has, and we've figured out it's all, relating back to the star, and the way that it manifests on people. Cactus has been on a run lately with really good, effective body horror, and it's maybe it's just effective on me. I'm pretty thin-skinned when it comes to that sort of stuff, but the fact is, this is well done. I actually prefer this to 1548. There's enough mystery. There's enough things left unsaid about the motives of the star. It has, it's explaining that, this is reminding you what it's like to be hated, to really be hated. But that is, it's kind of the definition of an unreliable narrator. It's really interesting from that perspective that it's a little bit deeper than I think it initially sort of portrays itself. So this is quite cool. I like how we approach sort of a rethink of 1548, and this was a pretty easy +1 from me. Moving on, SCP-4091, titled A Boy's Dog, written by Uncanny Clown 276. We have an image of a sheepdog. Looks to be a pretty young sheepdog, and this is captioned SCP-4091-1. We have an object class of Euclid and short procedures that says that currently junior researcher Shepard is kept in a standard humanoid containment chamber at Site-25. An area with a radius of 5 meters around the junior researcher is to be monitored at all times. When -1 manifests, it is to be intercepted by security personnel and kept in containment until demanifestation. And 4091 is described as the phenomenon involving the spontaneous manifestation of a single Canis lupus familiaris. We have a footnote here, and this is not quite correct because the footnote says Old English sheepdog. It probably should just say, domesticated dog, because that's the more accurate way to footnote it. But that's designated the -1. It will manifest spontaneously within a 5-meter radius of junior researcher Shepard. The time between these occurrences varies greatly, with the longest recorded time being 3 months and the shortest recorded time being an hour. The -1 is sapient and capable of speech, and upon manifestation, -1 will attempt to locate and converse with junior researcher Shepard. It will demanifest following the conclusion of the conversation, or if it's unable to locate the junior researcher within 30 minutes. We have an addendum. That was the whole thing, by the way. We have an addendum. It's a recorded conversation between junior researcher Shepard and -1. Shepard says, "Oh, it's you. How have you been?" Dog says, "Pretty good." Shepard says, "That's good. So anything interesting happening since I left?" Dog says, "Not really. We've all just kind of been hanging out." Shepard says, "Yeah, I figured. Nothing really happened while I was there either." Dog says, "That's not true. Remember how pissed Mike's mom was when he slipped and got mud all over his new jeans? We were laughing about that for years." Shepard says, "Yeah, that was good." And he stares at the floor, and the dog and Shepard remain silent for about 40 seconds, and the dog says, "I miss you, dude." Shepard says, "Yeah, I know." Dog says, "Will you ever come back?" Shepard says, "I don't know if I can." Dog says, "Why is that?" Shepard says, "I work here." The dog says, "What's work?" Shepard says, "You wouldn't get it." Dog says, "So you think you can come back later?" And Shepard says, "Probably not." Dog says, "Damn, that's a bummer." Shepard says, "Yeah." Foundation security personnel arrive. -1D manifests. When questioned, junior researcher Shepard refuses to elaborate on his conversation with -1. End article. It's the whole thing. But I thought it was worth inclusion. It's a short little story. This was a sort of after the fact JamCon entry because it is a shaggy dog. But, just a sweet little story. This dog that will kind of, for however the hell it manages, pops in, they talk for a little bit, says he misses him, pops back out. It's sad, it's sweet, and it's, and maybe I'm a little more sensitive to it this week than most. And my dog just had his second surgery in a month. So I've had like this soft spot for a little bit now, but they don't always have to be the best in the world. They don't always have to break a ton of new ground. Sometimes they're fine just the way they are, just aiming to tell a little simple story, and I like that about this. So it's an easy +1 on that basis. And last but not least, if you can believe it, we're already kind of at the end. This week, it didn't have a lot that really caught my eye. A couple things that I was on the fence on, but honestly, wasn't even really, like, these were the 3 that I was feeling the most, and everything kind of beyond that I thought was a step down. So last but not least, SCP-4387, titled "Don't Lose Your Head, Comrade," and this was written by, and I should have gotten this name, we're going to say Idrimi, IDRIMI. First thing you'll notice on visiting the page is that this is an IntCon entry. This pertains to one of the German GOIs. We have no images in the work at all. We have an object class of safe and minimal procedures. The skip is to be kept in a secure storage locker at Site-73. Now, here's an interesting little thing, and this is one of those things that I've kind of talked about on specific effective containment procedures. The first sentence of this reads, SCP-4387 is to be kept in secure storage locker 56 at Site-73. Now, if it's not important to the containment of the skip to keep it specifically in secure storage locker 56 then, or at site 73 for that matter, neither one is really necessary. It should probably read, it is to be kept in a secure storage locker. Neither one, for the purposes of the work, is needed to effectively contain the thing. It can be in any locker anywhere. So anyway, all testing must be authorized by Foundation operative, testing time, human resources not to exceed, blah, 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 blah. We have basically containment procedures that are largely fluff. We have the last sentence of it is a little interesting, but ultimately doesn't carry any bearing on the work. It reads, in the case that these deviations from established parameters are attributed to the head researcher, they are to be reported to the ethics committee. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that inclusion. That's probably something that doesn't need to be specified in the procedures. I believe the employees would exercise their best judgment on when to get the ethics committee involved. The skip is described as a black necklace with a small wooden crucifix attached in the middle, and the materials are determined to be non-anomalous. It was recovered during a Foundation raid of a shipment belonging to the GOI Raptor Tech Industries in the port of Black Box, Germany, along with attached documentation, which we have in Addendum 1. Now, when this necklace is placed around the neck of a human, the necklace will tighten around it, and after this, the flesh surrounded by the necklace will be severed by an unknown force at speeds hypothesized to surpass that of sound, and immediately afterwards a small portal is placed on either side of the cut so as to cover the entirety of the wound. So what we're doing here, this necklace will decapitate you, but with these portals being sort of put into place both on either side of your head and your stump, it will connect all of the blood, food, electrical signals that travel between the head and the rest of the body. The two may be physically separate, but still maintain normal bodily functions. But the wearer will express great amounts of physical and emotional distress, the pain reportedly becoming more intense as the head is moved further away from the body, presumably due to the link between the portals becoming weaker. Now, we have an interesting little note here that says the necklace cannot be removed by the wearer. Tightening when an attempt is made. When another individual does this, it will come off easily, but will cause immediate death, as the blood vessels, nerves, etc. will not be correctly aligned. So the only exception is when it's removed by the same individual who originally placed it, allowing the reconnection to happen successfully and for the wearer to be able to survive. It's a little bit heavy on the explanation. The rest of the work does kind of bear it out as to how such a thing could happen. So that actually, it ends up being kind of okay in the long run for this piece. The skip will occasionally manifest a secondary effect. When it's placed around the neck of a victim, it will experience a slight mimetic alteration of thought processes, particularly with a sense of empathy and lowered emotional response to the pain of others. So they will also feel an increased sense of justification for their actions regarding the anomaly, with the phrase science first often being repeated. Now, I'm going to say this part probably could be, this whole paragraph could probably be trimmed, because it doesn't end up doing a ton for the rest of the piece. The following files are a series of reconstructed documents regarding the skip written by the now defunct GOI Section 25, which operated in East Germany up until 1989. So a lot in the description, of quite a few effects and a bit of explanation on how it would work, and a secondary effect that truly, through the rest of the work and the rest of the addendums, probably could be left out, and I don't think you would lose anything here. The addendum is a series of memos from Section 25, and it has to do with the commissioning of this work, of the creating of this anomalous object, and it is carried out in 1966. They've captured an American spy who is refusing to speak despite numerous conventional interrogation methods. So they're looking a bit far afield. They're looking to use supernatural phenomena in the extraction of key information. So it's interesting that this is kind of the way that they went about it. out of, if you do have access to the supernatural, then this is, I guess, one way to go about it. Maybe not the one I would use, but they apparently found it justified. The magister put in charge of this is apparently a former member of the Mages Academy, who we've also talked about in one of the other Entcon pieces. And we begin this Project Ichabod, and we have constructed a piece, and we were able to incorporate technology to this object and did some positive testing results utilizing animals, and we attempt interrogation the next day. So from here, this apparently works quite well. He did not expect his head was going to fall off, so he has to hold on to his own head while we explain the parameters of the interrogation, and that we, I say we, this is they will not revert this process until the necessary information was given. And otherwise, the only way to survive would be to hold the head in place, as the device only has an effective range of 50 centimeters. That's only about a little over 1.5 feet. And it could easily slide off and fall to the ground. So the subject still resisted, was left alone in his cell, maintaining a tight grip on his head with both arms. So we determined this test to be a technical success. And we, I keep saying we, I want no association with this thing, for the record. This is a GOI. They attempt to feed him his first meal. It passes with flying colors. The spy complained about not being able to sleep for fear of dropping his head, appearing highly stressed, and the GOI offers the reversal of the process in exchange for classified information, but the subject refused. So they end that test. God, I don't know. I'm going to say we every single time during this, because it is built in much of the same sort of test log format as a Foundation test log, and I think that's what's throwing me off here. Even though it says Berlin above it, Section 25, blah blah blah. I don't know. It's months of conditioning at this point. So the next memo indicates that the subject is getting more agitated. He was very relieved at seeing the research team. He was terrorized at the fact that his arms were growing too weak to properly support his head. And in order to ease the subject's nerves, the restraints were changed so as to allow the spy to sit down. A guard held his head in place. He was given a few seconds to rest, and then was told this kind of treatment would continue if he cooperated. Then he laughed and insulted the socialist populace of their great republic, and because of that, proper interrogation began. The head was lifted up slightly to his horror. Panicked, the spy yelled out information about his mission in Berlin, and as a reward was set down again. When further questioned, he seemed regretful and refused to speak. The subject was returned to his previous standing position, and the test was ended. So, 2 days pass, and this was declared to be the most successful test so far. The spy at this point is really struggling between the stress, exhaustion, lack of sleep, but still uncooperative. The guards lift the head off of the body and stuck a finger into the portal that was attached to the stump, and this caused the finger to go up into the esophagus contained in the head, and then they basically went the other way with a stick up into the head to go down into the esophagus, into the stomach. The subject complained of nausea and sharp pain. The stick and head were leaned against the wall, the other end being supported by the inner surface of the stomach. So the spy begged for it to stop and gave further information on the nature of his mission. And we have the last, the final research report. This is the only one this is the last thing they needed to do. Basically, they began full-on torture, and they take the guy's head, and they got the head in one hand. They have a box of live cockroaches in the other. They take the head, dropped one of the roaches into the portal on the stump. So it falls into the esophagus and appeared in the back of the spy's mouth, and then was again transported down into the digestive pipe, to the great disgust and horror of the spy, who vomited. And they carried on with more and more cockroaches. Some fell into the trachea and were coughed up. Some became stuck in vocal cords. Some didn't immediately fall into any opening and were observed crawling inside and around the flesh of the neck, sometimes being visible through the skin. And the experiment had to be stopped as the presence of the insects on important arteries and nerves threatened the life of the subject. The test was an absolute success. A full confession was obtained, detailing a wide range of undercover American and British activities in the GOI's country. Not only that, the subject revealed the locations of what are believed to be all of the currently active bases of operation for Western spies, even when it was not yet specifically requested. So this was beyond effective. So a full transcript of the confession is attached in this document. All the necessary info has been obtained. Future experiments will focus on further testing the properties of my creation. The subject has been promised the process affecting him will be reverted thanks to his cooperation. It is my belief, however, that the object can still provide other ways to benefit the work of this distinguished section of the Ministry for State Security. Keeping science first is what shall see our great socialist republic prosper ever faster. All possibilities must be explored. And we have two last little logs. The first one indicating that since we have met the goals of the project, it is being discontinued, and the magister in charge is giving a 2-week vacation, and the object is to be removed and stored, and the captured spy disposed of. Last log reads, the product from the project has been removed from the subject, who expressed great relief. However, when it was removed, the head appeared to reconnect in the wrong position. The spy began to bleed profusely as his neck collapsed. The premature death of the subject facilitated his planned disposal. The object has been placed into storage next to an officer's office. End article. So the pacing is not, it could be better. Not going to say it's bad, but it could be better. You think of this in terms of the rising action and the falling action. So it rises a bit too slowly, and then it falls a little bit too far before it picks back up in the last log. I would probably convert these into one log as sort of a post-mortem, explaining it all in one piece. That said, it's really effective body horror, and in that regard, it's really well executed. There are some minor issues throughout the piece with spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and this includes little things like apostrophes that don't use the typical symbol. They use some Unicode symbol that probably comes off of I'm presuming, a German keyboard. But those sorts of things to me don't really detract from this work. It already has that international sort of feel, bringing in these outside GOIs. So I'm okay with it. Overall, the piece is solid. I think it is a few adjustments away from being a thoroughly good piece, and I think the consensus is kind of in that vein as well, because this is only at +9 right now. So needs a little work, but as it stands, it's still good enough for me to give a +1. And that's it. We're out of here. We will have another recap show about this time next week. I'm going to give a few weeks notice. May 31st. This is week 17. So let's see, week 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. The week 22 show will be probably a day or two behind schedule. I'll explain that a little bit more when we get closer to it. But between now and then, don't have a whole lot else going on these Friday evenings. So until next time, keep reading, keep writing, and I'll see you on the other side. It's time for the Labor Day sale at Shorty's Discount Heads. I'm Shorty, and we got all kinds of heads especially stocked in for you this Labor Day. We got black, white, Asian, Latino, kids' heads of all ages. And remember, Shorty's is home of the 2 for $25 special. That's right, any 2 heads, $25,000. That's a savings of $15,000 off regular price. That's Shorty's Discount Heads, $229 Flatbush, and tell 'em I sent you.